key part of HK's DNA has been that innovation. And even when HK has followed whatever consumer trends were out there in calibers, they've kind of spun off and done things in their own way. On the military side of the business, we plan to continue to do that. And I think on the consumer business, a great example of that is the Vp9. You know, the trend now is with striker-fired guns, not hammer-fired guns, and that's where the volume of the handgun market is. And we didn't just do a striker-fired gun like everybody else. We tend to follow trends and fashions within the firearms industry and improve on them and do it in an HK way that's within our DNA. And then we plan to white sheet some new products that solve problems in a very, very unique way that nobody else has ever thought of.
So Bill, we're looking at the Vp9 series of pistols, which for me, I think this is one of the first really strong commercial offerings for the US market from HK, just in that it is a pistol that is built to service grade. But especially in the SK model that we have here, you can see that there are also some features that are going to be really appealing to civilian shooters.
One thing we did with the VP series came out, is we really raised the bar on what a trigger on a striker-fired gun should be.
Yeah. This one's really, really crisp here. I mean, it's a beautiful trigger.
It's very crisp. The travel is shorter than what we're used to. The reset is shorter than what we're used to, and then the reset is actually tactile. You can feel that reset as it's resetting. Another part of the ergonomics is in the grip area, and one thing we've seen for several years now is the interchangeable backstraps on the guns. That certainly is a valuable feature, but we decided to take that a step further because that's just the way we are. That's the way we're wired at HK, right? Now we have interchangeable side panels as well.
Right, and there's another kind of a minor detail, but it's kind of interesting because it's a big help. And that's, you've kind of added these little fins to the back of the slide here. That's really important, especially for a lot of new shooters who haven't really been trained on how to properly manipulate these firearms. Having that extra, basically mechanical advantage simply built into the slide, it's a big help to really get a good grip and run that slide.
The first handgun that HK ever developed was the HK4. It was designated 4 because it was available in 4 different calibers: .22, .25, .32, and .380. A small pocket pistol, again, that went into production in the mid to late 1960s. In the 1970s, we had the P9S, a very unique roller delayed blowback system, the same operating system as the MP5. The P9S was available in both 9mm and .45 ACP. In the 1970s as well, we had the VP70. VP stood for Volk's Pistol or People's Pistol. This is regarded as one of the first polymer-framed handguns that went into production. This was a striker-fired design that was available in 2 different variants. The VP70Z, the Z stood for civilian, which was the semi-automatic version, and the VP70M was the military version that featured an optional buttstock that could fire the gun in 3-round bursts. Later in the late 70s and early 80s, we introduced the P7, a rather unique gas-retarded blowback design that featured a striker-fired firing pin as well as a squeeze cocking design system to cock the action and a fixed barrel. Later in the 1990s, we developed the Usp pistol. At the same time, the Mark 23 pistol that we developed for the Special Operations Command. This was again a turn because on the USPs we went to a standard Browning linkless short recoil system as opposed to some of the rather unique and proprietary systems that we had in the past.
When the consumer buys a firearm, that's kind of an emotional purchase, and trust is such a big issue. That's why I think our military and law enforcement business is such an important part of our history, and it's an important part of the success of our commercial lines. If you look at the U.S. military, our customers are not even the average soldier. It's that alphabet soup of agencies and units that are at that highest level are the ones that are using the HK product.
So Bob, one of the coolest things about being here in the gray room is that we get to see some prototypes or some small production firearms here, and maybe some firearms that most of our viewers are not going to be as familiar with, including this very interesting firearm you have right here.
This is the VP70. It was available in 2 different variants. The VP70Z was the civilian model, single shot only. The VP70M, the M stood for military, was the burst fire capable version. By installing the buttstock onto the back of the pistol, it allowed you to fire bursts at a very, very high cyclic rate.
Wow, well, can we put it together?
Certainly. We have the hinged recoil pad right over here. We flip that out. The buttstock actually acts as a holster.
Right.
Now to clear the gun, we have the European heel style magazine release. This is a high capacity 18 round magazine. We depress the button and take out the detachable box magazine. Then we'll go ahead and clear the slide by engaging the slide serrations and pulling this to the back. One thing about the VP70, it does not lock back after the last round is fired. To assemble, you have to ensure that the buttstock is set on the single shot position.
Right.
Then we're going to go ahead and snap this in to the back of the pistol frame. And then we'll go ahead and add the magazine. And then the chamber of the round, we would go ahead, rack the slide, and put the slide back into battery chamber in the first round.
This was probably one of the first, if not the first, polymer frame, striker fire handguns with a high capacity magazine. So a lot of very modern features, especially for its time. Its introduction was 1970.
Correct.
HK's footprint really expands across the globe, and that includes the United States. There are some very important parts of the HK DNA that we're still committed to, even in an American factory. And the most important one of those things really is the absolute reliability of HK products. These guns work. They work every time. They have to in that military environment, but right now in the civilian, they have to work just as reliably in the civilian market. So we're committed to doing things on the same level with these new products as we do in our German factory.
H&K has quite a history of innovation, not only in our designs, but improving the designs once they start being built. An example of that could be the 416. Already, we have about 7 major and probably about 14 different minor build standards for the gun. This, of course, is expensive to do, but a lot of this is in response to customer requirements.
Bill, we're looking at a iteration of the HK 416 platform, and this one, it kind of goes back to that heritage of making changes, adapting designs to meet contract needs or solicitation needs, and this one's been in the news a little bit.
It certainly has. This is, like you said, it's an iteration of the 416. We call it the M27, but it's really a 416 at heart and its guts. This is in response to a solicitation from the Marine Corps, so it's set up to their specific needs. So we have a 16.5-inch barrel, so it's really more of a civilian length barrel now.
Right.
It's funny how things kind of evolve and come back around again. It's got a longer handguard, and then we did some minor tuning to the gas system on this, so it would be more optimal and more controllable under full auto fire. So we'll fire at a little bit slower cyclic rate, a little bit easier to keep the muzzle down on the target on that. But yeah, it's just responding to the needs of a customer.
H&K has quite an extensive commitment to quality control that includes test firing of every small arm before it leaves the factory. There's 3 separate criteria. There's the proof rounds that measure overpressure. Then there's the accuracy standards. The handguns and the submachine guns are usually test fired at 25 meters, the rifles at 100 meters, and the grenade launchers at 200. And then finally we have a function test depending upon the selectors on the trigger mechanism, so safe, single shot, full auto, or burst option. And again, this is every gun, and this is also done in conjunction with CIP, the Permanent National Commission on the Testing of Firearms, essentially the European equivalent of SAMI.
Our slogan for many, many years has been no compromise, and that's not just something we say. We do not compromise. These guns have to work. They're not the cheapest option out there, but it is the most reliable option.